My brother kept stealing my food, so I made a special meal just for him. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. I'm a 27-year-old professional chef at one of Boston's top restaurants. I've worked my ass off to get where I am today. Culinary school, 60-hour work weeks, burns all over my arms, the whole 9 yards. Most people assume chefs don't want to cook when they get home, but that's not true for me. Cooking is my passion, my therapy, my way of showing love. When I moved back in with my parents temporarily while apartment hunting in downtown Boston, rent prices are insane right now. I only had one simple request: respect my food in the fridge. That's it. Just don't eat what isn't yours. Apparently, that was too much to ask. My younger brother, Jake, 24, is what I'd call a human garbage disposal. This man has absolutely zero boundaries when it comes to food. He works in marketing at some tech startup and somehow managed to convince my parents he's God's gift to the world. They've always favored him, the golden boy who can do no wrong. Jake's just a growing boy, my mom would say. I'd roll my eyes. He's 24, Mom. He stopped growing vertically years ago. Now he's just growing horizontally. The food stealing started small. A few missing fries from my takeout. The last slice of pizza I was saving. Annoying, but whatever. Then it escalated. Entire meal preps I'd spend Sunday nights making for my work week? Gone by Tuesday. Specialty ingredients I'd buy for recipe testing? Vanished. Leftovers from the restaurant that the executive chef let me bring home? Demolished before I could even reheat them. Every time I confronted Jake, it was the same routine. Oh, was that yours? My bad. With that stupid smirk on his face. When I'd complain to my parents, they'd just shrug. You're the chef in the family, just make more food. Can't you share with your brother? He's been working so hard lately. It's just food, Caroline. Don't be so dramatic. It felt like I was living in the Twilight Zone. Was I crazy for wanting my own food respected? For wanting boundaries? My boyfriend, Nathan, was the only one who understood my frustration. They're gaslighting you, he'd say during our phone calls. Your feelings are totally valid. Nathan lives in New York, working as a food photographer. We met at a culinary conference 3 years ago and have been doing the long-distance thing ever since. He's amazing, thoughtful, supportive, creative. He gets my passion for food because he shares it. The breaking point came last weekend. Nathan had traveled all the way from New York to visit me, and we rarely get to see each other in person. To celebrate our anniversary, he spent the entire day in my parents' kitchen preparing this incredible beef Wellington, my absolute favorite dish. It was a masterpiece, perfectly cooked medium-rare tenderloin, mushroom duxelle with just the right amount of herbs, and that golden, flaky puff pastry that takes hours to get right. Nathan had to catch an early train back to New York that evening, so he left the Wellington for me to enjoy later. Save it for tomorrow, he said, kissing me goodbye. Think of me when you eat it. I had a late shift at the restaurant that night. By the time I got home around 1 a.m., I was exhausted but so excited to have a slice of that Wellington. I opened the fridge and guess what? The entire thing was gone. Not a single crumb left. Just an empty plate with some dried-up gravy smears. I stormed upstairs and banged on Jake's door until he opened it, groggy and annoyed. Did you eat my beef Wellington? I demanded. He rubbed his eyes. Oh, that fancy meat thing in the fridge? Yeah, I had it for dinner. It was amazing. That was made by my boyfriend for our anniversary. Jake shrugged. How was I supposed to know? It was just sitting in the fridge. In a container with my name on it. Chill out. It's just food. You can make another one, right? You're the chef. I wanted to scream. It wasn't just food. It was hours of someone's time and love and effort. It was a special gift from my boyfriend who I barely get to see. It was the final straw. My dad came out of his bedroom irritated. What's all this yelling about? When I explained, he just sighed. Caroline, it's the middle of the night. It's just dinner. You're being ridiculous. That's when something in me snapped. If they thought I was being ridiculous, I'd show them ridiculous. Jake had crossed the line, and my revenge would be both fitting and memorable. The next morning at breakfast, Jake had the audacity to compliment the Wellington. "Your boyfriend can really cook. Maybe he can make another one before he visits next time." My mother chimed in, "Yes, Caroline, don't be so possessive about food. That's not how we raised you." I smiled sweetly. "You're right, Mom. In fact, I'm going to make a special dinner tomorrow, just for the family." My parents looked surprised but pleased. Jake grinned like the entitled brat he is. Little did they know what I had planned. I'm not usually a vengeful person, but desperate times call for desperate measures. My plan was simple but brilliant, if I do say so myself. Jake had a big date coming up with Olivia, this girl he'd been trying to impress for months. She was way out of his league, smart, beautiful, and actually had her life together, unlike my brother. They both worked at the same company, and he'd been trying to get her to go out with him since day one. Finally, she'd agreed to come over for dinner at our house. Jake had been bragging about it all week. She's vegetarian, so I told her I'd cook her this amazing plant-based meal. The only problem? Jake can barely make toast without burning it. I knew exactly what would happen. He'd panic and steal whatever I made. It was as predictable as the sunrise. So I decided to prepare the most irresistible vegetarian pasta dish, a creamy wild mushroom and truffle risotto with crispy sage and aged Parmesan. The kind of dish that fills the house with an aroma so mouth-watering that resistance is futile, but with one special ingredient, a generous dose of tasteless, odorless laxatives. Not enough to send anyone to the hospital, mind you. Just enough to create, let's call it an unforgettable evening. I spent the day off from work, shopping for premium ingredients. I wanted this dish to be perfect, deceptively delicious. The risotto would take hours of careful preparation, stirring constantly, gradually adding hot stock, getting that perfect creamy consistency. I selected the most aromatic wild mushrooms, splurged on real Italian truffle oil, picked up fresh herbs from the farmer's market. And then I stopped at the pharmacy for the final ingredient. As I cooked, my mom poked her head into the kitchen. "It smells amazing in here." "What are you making?" "Just trying a new risotto recipe," I said casually, "for tomorrow's staff meal at the restaurant." "Well, it smells divine." "Thanks, Mom. But please don't touch it. I need to see how it holds up overnight for recipe testing purposes." I finished cooking around 4 p.m., carefully placed the risotto in a container, and put it in the fridge. Then I set up my phone in the kitchen, propped against a cookbook, video recording activated. My second phone I positioned in the dining room, hidden behind some decorative plants. I wanted to capture every delicious moment of my revenge. Then I announced I was going out with friends for the evening and wouldn't be back until late. "But what about your risotto?" my mom asked. "Oh, I'll take it to work tomorrow." Like I said, it's for the staff meal. As I pulled out of the driveway, I didn't actually go far. I parked down the street, out of sight, and connected to my phones through a remote viewing app. Then I waited. Jake's date was scheduled for 7 p.m. Around 6:15, right on cue, my brother entered the kitchen, looking panicked. He opened the fridge, spotted my container, and hesitated for just a second before taking it out. He opened it, sniffed, and his face lit up. Without a moment's hesitation, he transferred my risotto into an elegant serving bowl, the one my grandmother had given me for Christmas. "Mom," I heard him call out, "is there any of that fancy cheese left?" My mother appeared in the kitchen. "What are you doing with Caroline's risotto?" She said not to touch it. "I'm in a bind here, Mom. Olivia will be here in less than an hour, and I have nothing prepared." I told her I'd cook something special. "But that's your sister's food for work." Jake gave her his patented puppy dog eyes. "Please, Mom? I really like this girl. Caroline can make more risotto. She's a professional chef, for crying out loud." And just like that, my mother caved. "Well, I suppose Caroline can make another batch. She always overdoes it anyway." "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." I watched, seething but satisfied, as Jake grated some extra Parmesan on top of my risotto and set the dining room table with candles and wine glasses. He even put on a button-up shirt and slacks, trying to look like the sophisticated home chef he most definitely was not. At 7 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. Olivia arrived looking gorgeous in a simple black dress. Jake greeted her with a hug, playing the perfect host. "Something smells amazing," she said, following him to the dining room. "I've been cooking all afternoon," Jake lied smoothly. "Wild mushroom risotto with truffle oil and crispy sage. All vegetarian, as promised." Olivia looked impressed. "I didn't know you could cook like this." "There's a lot you don't know about me," he said with a wink. I almost threw up watching this performance, but I kept my eyes glued to the screen. This was going to be good. Jake served the risotto with a flourish, even opening a bottle of expensive white wine that I'm pretty sure he took from Dad's collection. They clinked glasses and began to eat. "Oh my God, this is incredible," Olivia moaned, taking another bite. "The mushrooms, the creaminess. You have to give me the recipe." Jake preened under the praise. "Family secret," he said with a smug smile. "Passed down for generations." They continued eating and chatting, with Jake becoming more confident and animated as the meal progressed. Around 30 minutes in, I noticed the first signs. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He pressed a hand against his stomach. Olivia paused mid-sentence, her face suddenly looking confused. "Are you okay?" Jake asked her. "I'm fine, just..." She shifted in her seat. "Actually, I'm feeling a little strange." Jake's face paled slightly. "Strange how?" Before she could answer, a low gurgling sound emanated from Jake's midsection, loud enough that both phones picked it up clearly. His eyes widened in horror. "Excuse me for a second," Olivia said suddenly, standing up. "Could you point me to the bathroom?" "Down the hall on the right," Jake said, looking increasingly uncomfortable himself. The moment Olivia was out of sight, Jake doubled over, clutching his stomach. The gurgling sounds intensified. He took deep breaths, trying to maintain composure. Then came another, more urgent noise from his digestive system. Jake staggered to his feet just as a door closed down the hall. Olivia had reached the bathroom. Panic flashed across my brother's face as he realized his predicament. He looked around desperately, then made a dash for the half bathroom near the kitchen. What happened next was better than I could have imagined. Jake reached the half bathroom door at the exact moment Olivia emerged from the main bathroom, her face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she began. "I don't know what." But she trailed off as Jake pushed past her, practically shoving her aside in his desperation to reach the main bathroom. He slammed the door shut behind him. Olivia stood in the hallway, looking confused and mortified. From inside the bathroom came sounds that I won't describe in detail, but let's just say they were symphonic. Olivia's own stomach gurgled audibly. She looked around frantically, realizing all bathrooms were now occupied. She pressed her hand against her stomach, panic rising in her eyes. That's when my parents pulled into the driveway, returning early from their dinner out. I hadn't counted on this twist, but it made everything even better. As my parents entered the house, they found Olivia pacing the hallway in distress. "Hello," my mom said, confused. "You must be Jake's date?" "I'm his mother." Before Olivia could respond, a loud moan of agony came from the bathroom, followed by more unpleasant sounds. "What's going on?" my dad asked, looking concerned. "I don't know," Olivia gasped, sweat beading on her forehead. We were eating dinner and suddenly, oh God, she clutched her stomach. "Is there another bathroom I can use?" "Please?" "Upstairs," my mom said, pointing. "First door on the left." Olivia bolted up the stairs, taking them two at a time. My parents looked at each other in confusion. "What the hell is happening?" my dad wondered aloud. His question was answered by more distressing sounds coming from both bathrooms. My mother wrinkled her nose as a distinctly unpleasant odor began to permeate the house. That's when I decided it was time to make my entrance. I pulled into the driveway, grabbed my bag, and walked in with an innocent expression. Hey, I'm home early. My friend I stopped, pretending to notice the chaos. What's going on? My dad gestured helplessly toward the bathrooms. Jake and his date are sick. Both of them. I asked, eyes wide with fake concern. A door opened, and Jake emerged from the bathroom, pale and shaky, his shirt soaked with sweat. He took one look at me, and his eyes narrowed with suspicion. What did you do? He croaked. I shrugged. Me? I just got home. The risotto, he gasped. You did something to it. My mom looked between us. What risotto? Jake, what are you talking about? Before Jake could answer, Olivia stumbled down the stairs, looking like she'd been through war. Her perfect makeup was ruined, her face ghostly pale. I need to go home, she whispered, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Olivia, wait, Jake pleaded weakly. I can explain, no explanation needed, she said. I need to leave. Now. I'll call you an Uber, I offered sweetly, pulling out my phone. As we waited for the Uber to arrive, an awkward silence filled the living room. Jake sat hunched over on the couch, shooting daggers at me with his eyes. Olivia stood by the door, as far from Jake as possible. My parents looked completely baffled. When the Uber finally arrived, Olivia practically ran to the car without saying goodbye. As soon as she was gone, all hell broke loose. What did you do? Jake roared, then immediately clutched his stomach as another wave of intestinal rebellion hit him. I crossed my arms. I made risotto. For work. Which you stole. Again. My dad looked between us. What is she talking about, Jake? She poisoned me. Jake yelled. She put something in the food because she knew I'd eat it. Not poison, I corrected calmly. Just a generous helping of laxatives. And I labeled that container clearly as mine. It's not my fault if you decided to steal it and feed it to your date. My mother gasped. Caroline, how could you? How could I? I laughed incredulously. How could he keep stealing my food for months while you two do nothing about it? How could he eat the special Wellington that Nathan spent all day making for our anniversary? How could you keep enabling his selfish behavior? It's just food, my dad argued. No, it's not just food. I finally exploded. It's respect. It's boundaries. It's acknowledging that my things matter too. Jake has been treating me like crap for years, and you've been letting him. Jake made another dash to the bathroom, slamming the door behind him. My mom sank into a chair. I had no idea it was that serious. Because you never listened. Every time I tried to talk about it, you dismissed me. Just share with your brother, Caroline. Don't be so dramatic, Caroline. Well, was this dramatic enough for you? My dad's face reddened. You could have made your point without humiliating that poor girl. She didn't do anything wrong. That hit me hard. He was right. Olivia was collateral damage in my revenge plan, and I hadn't considered that fully. You're right, I admitted. I shouldn't have involved her. That was wrong. Jake emerged from the bathroom again, looking slightly less green, but still furious. You've completely ruined any chance I had with Olivia. She'll never speak to me again. I'm sorry about that, I said, and I meant it. But I'm not sorry about teaching you a lesson about respecting my belongings. By poisoning me? By giving you a taste of your own medicine. You've been crapping all over my boundaries for years. Now you're just doing it more literally. My dad couldn't help but snort at that, which earned him a glare from my mom. This isn't funny, David, she snapped. This has gone too far. You're right, my dad sighed. Both of you are acting like children. I raised an eyebrow. And whose fault is that? You two created the situation by always letting Jake do whatever he wants without consequences. My mom looked down, genuinely thoughtful for the first time. Maybe we have been a bit uneven in how we handle things. Jake scoffed. So now you're taking her side? I'm not taking sides, Mom said firmly. But Caroline has a point. You did take her food without asking, even after she specifically labeled it. And that justifies poisoning me? No, I interjected. But maybe now you'll think twice before taking something that doesn't belong to you. After a tense silence, my dad spoke up. Here's what's going to happen. Jake, from now on, you don't touch your sister's food without explicit permission. Caroline, no more laxatives or any other substances in food, ever. And both of you need to figure out how to live together like adults until Caroline finds her own place. I nodded, satisfied. Jake glowered, but eventually muttered, fine. Later that night, as the household settled into an uneasy peace, my phone pinged with a text. It was from Olivia, surprisingly. I know what happened. Your brother confessed everything when I texted to break things off. I winced, typing back quickly, I'm really sorry you got caught in the crossfire. That wasn't fair to you. 3 dots appeared, then, honestly, it was the most entertaining first date I've ever had in retrospect. And any guy who takes credit for someone else's cooking and steals from his sister probably isn't boyfriend material anyway. I laughed out loud. So true. Still, I owe you dinner. A laxative-free one, I promise. I might take you up on that. Your risotto was amazing before the side effects kicked in. The next morning, Jake approached me in the kitchen, looking sheepish. I've been thinking, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. I may have been a bit of a jerk about the food thing. A bit. I raised an eyebrow. Okay, a lot, he admitted. And I'm sorry about Nathan's Wellington. That was really messed up. I nodded, accepting his apology. Just respect my stuff from now on, okay? Deal. He hesitated. Also, do you have any anti-diarrhea medication? I'm still not feeling great. I couldn't help but laugh as I tossed him the medicine from my purse. Next time, ask before you eat. Surprisingly, things got better after that. Jake started asking before taking food, and my parents became more conscious of their favoritism. I found an apartment downtown a few weeks later and moved out, but our relationship actually improved. Sometimes Jake even texts me for cooking advice now. As for Olivia, we became friends, and I introduced her to one of the sous chefs at my restaurant. They've been dating for 3 months now. The greatest revenge wasn't the laxatives. It was finally being heard and respected, though I have to admit, the laxatives made for a much better story. And that Reddit is how I won the ultimate sibling food war. Worth it? Absolutely. So there you have it, folks. The ultimate sibling showdown over something as seemingly simple as food. But as we've seen in this story, it was never really just about the food, was it? It was about respect, boundaries, and being heard in a family dynamic that had clearly become unbalanced. Our chef protagonist tried the reasonable approach first, labeling her food, talking to her brother, appealing to her parents. Only when all those normal channels failed did she resort to her creative revenge plan. While the laxative-laced risotto might seem extreme, it certainly delivered a message that couldn't be ignored. What I find most interesting about this story is how it took such a dramatic event to finally create positive change in this family. Sometimes it takes a real shakeup to break unhealthy patterns that have been years in the making. The parents finally acknowledged their favoritism, the brother learned to respect boundaries, and our storyteller got what she really wanted all along, basic respect for her belongings. Of course, we can't ignore that innocent Olivia got caught in the crossfire. That's the thing about revenge. It often affects more people than just your intended target. Thankfully, that situation worked out surprisingly well too, proving that sometimes the universe has a way of balancing things out. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have tried something different before resorting to the laxative plan? Or do you think some people only learn lessons the hard way? Maybe you've experienced similar boundary issues with family members or roommates. Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this family drama story, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily Reddit stories about family conflicts, relationship drama, and sweet revenge. We upload fresh content every single day, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Until next time, remember, sometimes in family drama, The best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with laxatives.